Okay, what time do we have? It is 7:01, so thank you for joining us. It is the virtual May board work session. It is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. It is 7:01. May I have a roll call, please?
President Linda Penoyer,
Present?
Commissioner Janice Duckett,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Franklin,
Here.
and Dave Williams, Town Clerk, all present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Seems we have a lot of business today. Starting off with Ordinance 2021-02, FY 2021 budget amendment. This is up for discussion. David?
Excuse me, Mayor. I assumed since we introduced it, we weren't gonna, but I can read it, no problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. This is all up for discussion. This is an ordinance relating to the adopting and approving of budget amendments for fiscal year 2021 budget. Do I have any discussion? Any questions, any comments?
It was really well explained at the last work session. So
Yes, and I apologize for not having a video on. I will be back to my camera in about 10 minutes, but we did discuss this at the last meeting. There hasn't been any numbers that has changed thus far. Once we reconcile for the month of May, the numbers will change slightly, but these are numbers that will be put as, or to try to get as close as possible to the actual numbers that we'll look to have by the end of the fiscal year, which ends June 30th. But at the moment, the numbers that you'll see now are the same numbers that we discussed at the last meeting that we held.
Thank you, Will. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I shall pass this forward to the June 8th town meeting for approval. Is that correct?
Correct, Mayor. Yeah, we'll get those final figures from Mr. Morgan and plug them in for passage.
Okay.
do we have to readjust it again, like once the year actually closes, or we just get it as close as we can?
Usually as close as we can, and then Will works with the auditors at this point. Correct, Will?
Yes, we'll just get it as close as we can for the end of the year. They're never, not gonna say never, but some of the line items won't be accurate as far as the actual numbers, but we'll just get them as close as we can as for the final budget, and we provide that to the auditor.
And then the audit is kind of the final, I guess, discussion on this budget. When the audit comes out in fall 2021, finalizes this budget.
Thanks.
We should not be, excuse me, we should not be too far off. I think all of our major stuff is under, we have that pretty well covered, right, Will?
Yes, we're not going to be too far off. We focus on the expense side first to get those numbers more accurately aligned. And then we look at the revenues and try to adjust those, but we won't be far off as far as the numbers on readjusting those, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Ordinance 2021-03, FY 2022 Town Operating Budget. It is up for discussion. Do I have
Yes.
questions or comments?
So I'm not sure if there's any questions or comments, but these numbers are very similar to the FY 2021 draft adjustments. There hasn't been any adjustments here. There are going to be some other conversations that may readjust the budget line items, not a lot, but within small numbers. We did add a line item for red light cameras on the revenue side, but we zeroed that out because we don't know how much revenue that might come in for that. One of the things that we did do with this budget is we wanted to make sure that we separated or broke out the different funds for monies that we have coming in. So monies that we might have coming in for the American Rescue Plan, the ARP money, the federal funded money, the bill that was approved. We also have grant monies coming in. We separated the fund for the committees as well. So we did a few things that has been differently in the past to kind of break those out from the operating budget. Some of those things you'll see within our budget presentation that we'll do in the month of June. But to date right now, none of those numbers has changed since the last meeting that we discussed it.
And I think this process has been really good, and Will has done a really good job explaining everything, and the extra meetings have helped us understand everything. And Will's met with me separately because I'm the treasurer. So thank you.
Will, quick question. Could you send out like an updated Excel spreadsheet? To at least myself, unless any of the commissioners want it. I just wanted to make sure we could post this publicly.
Sure.
For some final public. I know you're doing a presentation at the June town meeting. Just see if there's any last minute questions, but I just wanted to make sure the public had access to a final full budget.
Sure, we'll talk through it and I'll get that over to you. If not this evening, but more so probably about tomorrow morning, so we can get that posted.
Yeah, later this week works. If I can get it up before the weekend as a post on the website, that'll be great. Thanks. That's all I need.
Sure.
Oh, I did have one more thing. Just wanted to see what the commissioners thought with this budget. We have some vehicle purchases. And I was talking to the town attorney about possibly incorporating some language authorizing purchases into the ordinance, but it was kind of recommended against it. So instead, obviously for like the public works truck and the police cruisers, it takes a resolution authorizing payment and purchases. And we have Darnell and Chief on that. I know Chief, we don't have the officers for those trucks, but I just want to see if Darnell and see if the board would consider maybe passing a resolution at the June town meeting authorizing purchase of the truck, so Darnell can start kind of moving forward with some purchases. Obviously, we wouldn't put any funds out until July 1st with the new fiscal year, but it kind of gives Darnell the go ahead to get that larger truck for the bulk trash. And I'll let Darnell kind of weigh in on that if he thinks that'd be helpful, or should we just wait out until after and pass something at the July town meeting? And then Chief can chime in too if he really needs those two cruisers.
The sooner the better on both of those. As we move forward towards annexation, we don't want to have those areas annexed and we don't necessarily have the equipment to service them. That'll just take away from other duties. And it takes quite a while to actually get this truck ordered, unless we decide to do something different and just buy one outright that's outfitted.
Commissioners, any thought on that?
So that Kevin felt that was going to be okay to do it that way.
Yeah, if that's the way we normally do it. I was trying to see if we could put it just in the budget ordinance to not have too many or too much legislation on it, but it's more transparent just to break it out separately versus kind of hiding it in an ordinance. I was trying to save a headache, but it is just good practice to move forward with just breaking out separately and having those conversations. So I just want to see if the board had any thoughts on it. It would kind of just give, I guess, Darnell an extra maybe 30 days to get up and running and get the truck secured, or
Wouldn't have to wait
like
for
that.
the June meeting either.
Yeah, it would be the July. So if we pass something in June, we'd have from the June 8th town meeting to the July 13th would be the next time we could kind of approve that with the new budget.
I think that makes sense then.
Okay, which one makes sense?
having the resolutions ready to pass at the June 8th town meeting. We're authorizing the funds. Kevin, the lawyer, says that that's how to do it. Darnell can have 2 more weeks to get things done. So yeah, I think that's what we should do.
I agree as well. I think we need to move forward to make sure he can get what he needs.
Okay. And Chief, did you have any thought on, Chief's on here, right? Yeah, Chief, did you have any need for your 2 cruisers authorizing this to be kind of sped up that way as well?
Yes, I mean, it's always better to have it approved, because if the revenue comes in or we hire people, it'll make the process so much faster. So yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm hoping I'm answering the question. Somebody had called me, so I wasn't really listening, but.
No, I think you hit it on. You nailed it. Yeah. And then all these vehicles are being financed. So we'd also work with the finance company we already have, and we've done this before with the 2 existing marked SUVs we have that Sergeant Irby and Corporal Devaros drive. So that would be mimicked pretty much for that. And then we'd have a new one drawn up for the public works vehicle. Is that too much, Will? That I know you got to work with the financing firm to get that all up and running well.
No, that's fine. We'll talk about it after, but that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, we just didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves without board support. So,
Just for my clarity, would the dump trailer be financed as well, or we're not talking about that specifically?
I don't think it was planned to have it financed in this, unless we find that it's I guess more favorable to include it in the finance. Like if that company, we can get a deal from whoever we buy the 650 Chevy from. But I think right now the way we've kind of spelled it out was that just was going to be paid in cash from town funds. It wasn't going to be financed because it was only 10,000, correct?
It's a little over that, and that quote has expired after the 30 days, but it shouldn't be too far off from that.
Okay.
And it's a separate company from Criswell Chevrolet.
Okay. So that would take a separate resolution as well, because it is over 10,000. So it'd be 2 resolutions for public works and 1 resolution for the police vehicles. Would be what would be discussed in June's town meeting, or approved in June town meeting. And no funds would obviously be spent till after July 1st. But
Okay, does everybody understand that and agree with it? Any questions or comments?
No, I understand it and agree with it.
thank you, commissioners. That's all I have for this mayor.
Okay, so this will go forward to the June town meeting for approval.
Oh.
Next up would be ordinance 2021-04, amending personnel standards. This is another discussion item. There is also a memorandum regarding this.
I can cover the memo real quick, Mayor, if you want.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So obviously at the extra work session for the residents who weren't there, the board kind of dove into this in detail, this ordinance covering personnel issues. And out of that, we kind of pulled the 3 main issues that commissioners and staff identified, and some fixes as well. So in this is reflective. Well, actually, this carries over to the budget ordinance as well, with the pay scale, because those figures are actually broken out in the ordinance. But so we got the 3 issues: one of the low pay grade, and I have a separate discussion on that. 2 being confusion about how employees move along pay grades and steps. So obviously for that, we beforehand, employees could head up to sometimes 30 different pay grade or pay steps that they could be in. spread across multiple different pay grades. So here in this memo, and then in some stuff in the closed session that we have as well, we've kind of broken those positions into those single pay grades. So that way it's not as confusing and we're not crossing across pay grades for different positions. But the ordinance still spells out how an employee gets a step raise. So like for the first 3, you get every other year, and then that's obviously separate than cost of living. And then 3 was over the concerns of hiring employees with experience. How are they brought on, at what rate? And so we pretty much added new language about when a new employee is hired, they should be hired at step 1 of their pay grade unless they're experienced or have an education that supports it, in which case human resources can offer human resources, and obviously the board working together can put them up to step 4 of that pay grade. But to do anything beyond step 4 would require board approval ahead of time. So obviously if it's like a town clerk or something like that, that's the board would have the discussion. But if it's just like a regular police officer who's coming on, but they have 30 years experience, chief can work with Will and obviously the board and let them know what's going on if it's over step 4. And then for issue 1, I think I skipped over, we eliminated the original pay grade 1 that started at 32,000 and made pay grade 2 pay grade 1. So now the town's lowest starting rate is $35,350 per year. And then we added the next rate up that was step 9 on the federal chart is now our step 8, and that will be reflected in the budget ordinance. And then there was Commissioner Franklin also raised an issue about the calculation of the hourly rate. I had some discussions with Mr. Morgan about it as well, trying to figure out, because the ordinance is kind of confusing. So I just wanted to have a brief discussion in open meetings before we made any determinations and edited that kind of that section in the ordinance as well. But I don't know, Commissioner Franklin. You guys wanted to take it from there on that?
Yeah, so the reason I noticed this is because I used to be a payroll accountant, and we always calculated the hourly rate someone got paid by the main salary divided by 2080, because in a year you work 2,080 hours. And this ordinance calculates part-time employees' hourly salary based on just 2,000 hours. The way Will had explained that to me is, since a part-time person doesn't get vacation, they took out that 80 hours. But what that's essentially doing is giving, the part-time person can take off vacation, and it's like having paid vacation because they're getting paid more per hour than a full-time person. And just our full-time people, if we're calculating, especially for overtime or something like that, you should be using their hourly rate for every hour they work or are on leave in a given year, because you want their final salary to be, say it's somebody at step 1, pay grade 1. You want at the end of the year them to have earned $35,350, not more than that if you're calculating back into hours. Because I think, Will, I don't know if ADP still pays hourly. So, you guys put in timesheets and Will puts that in, and then ADP calculates it based on hours, or maybe it's different for the salaried employees versus the hourly. So I think we should use 2080 because I think 2,000 is overestimating the hourly wage.
And this is for, I'm sorry, page 6 of the ordinance, section D, number 1. There's the section we're discussing.
Yeah, and in Kyle's issue 1, he says the starting rate from 1616 to 1768 an hour. It's actually, if you do 2080, the current starting rate is $15.54, and it would be increasing it to $17 even.
And that's me plugging it in an online database because I didn't know how to calculate hourly rate. So this is a learning.
Yeah, maybe it's some reason I just don't understand what it is, because if you don't work the hours, if you take unpaid time off, you're still, and even if you don't take unpaid time off, if you get paid that hourly amount, you're getting more than the annual salary.
Will, do you have any comment on that?
Sorry. Yeah, I think we did have some discussion about this, myself and Commissioner, about a month or two ago, when we were going through the personnel ordinance. I do think from my side, I feel like it should be 2080. I think that a part of what the, I guess the standard, or what the people more so why they put 2000 instead of 2080 is because, again, that they're anticipating that the individuals will take off some type of leave for 2 weeks out of the year. But I believe it should be 2080 because that's what we do all of our calculations off of, based off of their salary, based off their pension contributions and everything. So I think 2080 should be what should be listed in the ordinance.
Any other comment or discussion on this particular topic?
I'll go ahead and make that change. And was there anything else in the personnel ordinance, or any of the, I hope we addressed all the issues that were brought up, or any concerns, but we'll just run it through the attorney one more time, make sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. So it can be introduced at or passed at the June town meeting.
Yeah, you guys addressed all the issues that I had at the last meeting. I kind of knew when I put this into the personnel ordinance that it was not allowed by the charter, but I want to have a discussion about it, because right now the whole board has authority over hiring, but the president can fire any employee without input from the board. And I know it's in the charter, but I think when we deal with the election section, we should throw that one change in as well to the, I think that's the, like, under the board section, or functions of the board, or functions of the president. I know there's a lot of changes we need to make, but I think that one is most concerning, because it kind of doesn't distribute that evenly, and it makes the staff sort of in this awkward position, I feel like.
And I think, so it can't be in, so yeah, that would have to be a charter change, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think we can't technically pass a law that conflicts with the charter, but our kind of internal guidance could be that the mayor checks in with the board, but it's hard to go against the charter, you're right. And I was gonna have a discussion with Attorney Best about the election section and what we would need to change to go for stuff like 4 to 5, so that we can start discussing the June work session.
Yeah, I know it needs to be comprehensively dealt with, but I think that's something that should change. I think if the personnel ordinance was established to ensure that the board is more involved in the hiring of staff, then the president shouldn't be able to fire staff without the board.
Any other comments? Okay, I do have a comment. And I know, Sarah, that you have just had your say, so please let me have mine. I realize that we've had some lessons that we've learned over the past few years regarding the power of the presidency in this commission. Some of them were hard learned. The ordinance that when we drafted this to limit some of the power of the presidency in regards to hiring it, we dealt with it at a level of department heads. And that for a reason. Getting involved in every aspect of personnel, in my estimation, would be self-serving. It does not serve the town. The town currently pays out funds for an HR firm. We pay out for an HR person here, and we have our department heads. We need to trust them. I don't think that every commissioner needs to be involved in every hire. Department heads, absolutely, but not in every hire. Once you start that, and we will at some point go to 5 commissioners, that's a must at some point, in the future. That's just going to complicate things even more. It's going to make it even harder to get personnel hired, because now you're working with 5 people who, if they all decide they want to be part of the process, then you work with their availability and that. So I think it should be limited into that the commissioners be involved on a level of the department heads. And absolutely. I mean, I saw what happened firsthand when we were not. But I don't think you need to be involved in every aspect of every hire in this town. And that's just my thought. We pay, like I said, we pay money for experts. And we have good people, and I trust those people. And those are the people that the commissioners should all be trusting of. And if we aren't trusting of them, and we think we should be part of that process later on down the road for their employees, basically, who they hire, then maybe we aren't trusting them as much as we think.
So I definitely trust our department heads. I really want to make that clear. And I hope that none of the department heads think I do not trust their ability to hire, and I trust Will to hire. However, what happened when we were hiring a deputy clerk was that Commissioner Duckett and I had some concerns and some things we wanted addressed. Those were not addressed. In an open meeting, we were told that we weren't going to talk about it, and you were going to just not involve us in the process because you could, because you're the mayor. Linda, that is what you said. And that is what precipitated my concern here. Now, do I think that Dave can't hire a deputy clerk? No, I think he can hire a deputy clerk. But if I sent a message to Will and Kyle saying, I think we should think about this, then and you were on that message, and it's your call, really. So when I don't hear back, I assume you said, well, we're just not going to consider it, but you didn't email me. I wanted to know what was going on. Commissioner Duck and I both thought maybe we should hire a part-time or a temporary person, but nothing was said about that. We were just told we weren't going to be involved in the process. So there is a power of the president issue. It's not a department head trust issue. It's an issue of when the president says, well, no, I'm just going to do this without you, then that isn't about a department head. It's about a fellow elected official who is a fellow member of a board that's supposed to work together, cutting other people out of the process.
Okay, now you took it that way. When in that meeting, I said, we are going by the ordinance, and the ordinance does not involve the commissioners at that level. And
actually, the ordinance says one commissioner will be involved, and you said that
I am still a commissioner.
Yes, and your fellow board asked to discuss which commissioner was involved.
No, you didn't say that.
We said we wanted to be involved.
That's different.
And if you might not remember, but we also said, I also suggested Janice being the commissioner involved. And you said that no, it was going to be you because you could, and that was it.
Sarah, I understand that you have a problem with me being the president.
I do not have a problem with you being the
Sarah,
president.
it really sounds like it a lot.
I think I know you take my
I was going by the ordinance. And that's what I was trying to get to. Now, if you had concerns, you did. I went back through my emails. Your concerns came after that, and I addressed every one of your concerns.
I'm sorry, you missed the earlier emails then, because the concerns that I had emailed you before that meeting were not addressed. You told me at that meeting you would respond to an email. So I enumerated the concerns again in another email to you.
Well, you might want to show me that first one because I did not get one that said dated exactly what you were concerned about prior to that.
Okay, I'll go
through my emails, and I also have emails that I sent to you that I never got responses to, but that's immaterial. If you send an email and you send it to Kyle and Will and Janice and then me, and one of those people, or especially if Kyle responds, I don't feel I have to respond because he and I talk about his responses. So if you want something directly from me, send it directly to me.
Okay, Linda. But to go back to the point here, because this isn't actually about me having a problem with you. This is actually me seeing that the president, over my 8 years living here, has used the position to say, hey, no, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And I, of course, expected you not to do that, but it seems like there's something in that role that is making it hard to make it a team effort. Because Janice and I are both also elected officials. And my understanding of the organizational chart and the way this works is Janice, you, and I are all on the same level. You feed our decisions into town via Kyle. That's not really what's happening. So that's a whole nother discussion about the charter and the structure and the number of commissioners and that kind of thing. But I think at the current time, my modifications to this ordinance were based on that one meeting where you were not going to let us discuss the position. You weren't going to hear what we had to say.
Sarah, the commission, when I came on board and when you and Janice both came on board, I came on board in January. You came on in later that same year. I said one of the things I want to do is work together as a commission, more as a commission than the commission has in the past. That is communication. And most of that does not happen. We communicate things, and especially in the beginning, if I never got an answer. It became a, did you hear from? Did you hear from? Did you hear from? If I get no answer, I get no answer. And that both of you were very guilty of that. We tried to give you as much information as possible. We are as transparent as possible. If you have a problem, we can email back and forth. We do not write, and up until, I don't think they've changed the email aspect of communication. We may not be able to pick up the phone and talk, but we can send emails.
Yes, and
emails in the past.
I mean, possibly in the beginning, I was overloaded by everything coming in and I didn't respond to every email. But I have in notes to discuss later, things like a Memorial Day wreath laying that was planned without asking the commissioners if they were available. I have to work and I feel it's important for me to be there. We can talk about that later. but things don't come as a discussion. We can talk about things like a wreath laying. We can talk about things like whether we're meeting in person or not. We can have those discussions over email, but we don't get an email from you saying, hey, what do you guys think about this? We get an email from Kyle saying, the mayor said we're going to do this.
We have a memorial wreath laying every year. That is not a subject that is like, let's discuss, should we have this?
No, but you could, if you said, okay, we're going to have this, I either could have taken off or I could have said, hey, can we do it at 12:30 instead of 11 so that I can be there?
Well, you have time. You didn't respond to did you respond to that?
I didn't respond because in emailing you, I have not received a response. So I put it to talk about now so that I can definitely get a response from you.
Okay. I will stand by what I have said, that I think this language does not belong in this ordinance. I think that it is self-serving. And I think it just is an added burden to the personnel here going forward. And I think, I truly do think that it is more self-serving than it does not serve the town well to expend that much energy on every single hire.
I get that, but I think that the public was upset at that meeting too. And it wasn't just about me feeling like I needed to be part of the process and serve myself, but the public did not like that we weren't allowed to have any kind of input when we wanted to. So I think we have a bigger charter discussion and structure of government discussion to have, but I'm trying to work with what we have right now because, you know, that's what we have now.
That is exactly what I was doing, working with the ordinance that we had.
Okay, and I think if we were really a more open and communicative board, you would have been willing to let one of us help with the hire instead of yourself.
Not at that point, sir. No. Not at that point. Now we are hiring a department head and you got every single application that we got.
Yes, and that was not
Every single one of them.
I know, Linda, but that wasn't the best use of our staff's resources to just throw every application at us. I trust Will and Kyle to have gone through those and send only the qualified ones to us. So responding to us wanting to be part of one process with sending us everything for another process is.
Well, that's the process that is more important, is the department head.
It is. And I trust Will and Kyle to say this person does not meet our minimum qualifications, so we're not going to send that on to the commissioners.
Well, based on the last aspect, that I did not feel you did. And I said that to you in my email in return, that I did not feel you trusted them to do that.
And I've corrected that and apologized about that in case anyone felt that. But that is not accurate, Linda.
Well, it was accurate at the time. And you, like I said, you stand by what you say and I'll stand by what I say.
Okay. I think this language needs to be in here because I think.
And I do not. And we will vote on it next week. Any other discussion? Moving on. Okay, memo to extend the declaration of emergency, DOE 2021-02. Cal, would you like to go ahead with that one?
Absolutely. So as the board's aware, this is going to be our 5th extension of the declaration of emergency. This one, the current one expires at the end of June. This one will run through the end of September to give us, we usually give it a couple months. It can always be terminated ahead of time. And I would recommend that, especially if the county and state remove their declarations of emergencies as well. But I don't really anticipate them doing that before September. But in this new extension, there's a couple items I wanted to discuss with the board, see how the board thought before we move forward with start drafting stuff. One is beginning the reopening plans for town hall for the general public around July 1st. Obviously the town hall has been updated. We're doing twice a week cleanings again. We have air purifiers running. We just had our HVAC units upgraded with better filters. And then we have the hand sanitizing and temperature screening stations as well, along with the plexiglass barriers around the reception area. This would only authorize me to start planning it. We wouldn't, obviously the board would know the exact plan before we fully reopen, but it would just kind of nudge us in that direction. Also seeing if the board want to consider resuming town hall room rentals after hours only. Before we did rent during the day, but I wouldn't recommend that just because of cross traffic and whatnot. So after hours only, it would not be for the entire facility. It would just be for that section over there. That way they're not coming over here as well. And then regarding masks inside, even if obviously the county and state are differentiating on the indoor mask requirements. But even if the county relaxes, right now we're bound by the county. Right now masks need to be worn inside due to county regulations. But if the county ever brings that down, I'd recommend the town still kind of use that, especially engaging with the public and the visitors in town hall. Obviously, if staff are in their offices alone, that's a separate issue. But that's a big thing I figured the board would want to discuss. And then also removing the 3 15-minute carryout only spaces because now the courthouse fully reopened, the restaurants are at full capacity again, and we're starting to see a need for those parking spots on Main Street. And then this would still keep the 14 days of COVID sick leave available to staff if needed. That has been tapped into a bit for the second dose vaccinations and whatnot, and some other things. So that would stay available, but I'll open it back up for board discussion. If you guys have any questions for me, or if you think I missed anything needs to come off that list, let me know.
The clerk here, should we include notary services?
I figured that would be included in the reopening plan, Dave.
Okay, because I just wanted to emphasize, I think this is a great opportunity to change to a by appointment only schedule.
I think this makes sense, Kyle. And I listened to the touch base meeting today, and I just wanted to suggest, because we're talking about town hall reopening and concerns about people being there alone. And I thought that maybe in the reopening plan, we should consider having appointment times, and then also depending on staff schedule, having like workout staff schedule to say walk-ins welcome on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 4 or something like that. Whenever there can be at least 2 staff members, and you guys can work the schedules to do that. And then other times by appointment, that I think would address a lot of the concerns that were brought up then.
I think the only thing people kind of come in that we could pre-schedule is, like Dave mentioned, notaries. Most of the other walk-ins we have are kind of on the fly, like parking ticket payments, or we've got a couple residents walking in with concerns. So those are really the I don't know, what would you say, Dave, would be the more, we get definitely notary, we can schedule ahead of time, and we can tell people, we can set that up. I think Office 365 as a scheduling item we could definitely take advantage of.
Yeah, and there are residents that want copies or faxes, et cetera. Most of them do call ahead. But the biggest traffic are, people get lost. And or they think we're the courthouse because the GPS took them to the town hall. And occasionally, and it has happened several times, if not half a dozen since I've been working there, a Metro Rider bus or whatever those little vans are would drop people off there and they'd be stranded. So there are instances where things just happen serendipitously. So I guess that's doable. We could have signage that says, if you need immediate assistance, please call. Hopefully have a phone or they may just be knocking on the door a lot. So we really have to put down if somebody's banging on the door and getting very frustrated,
Right.
how do we, I'd say, we are, one of the biggest services we do is straighten people out that we aren't the county or the court.
Yeah, and there's a resident comment saying
So,
that they wouldn't
I was
want
getting ready to address, let me address that comment. And for those of you all who don't really know what happened at the other meeting, it's more of a safety concern for the employees. I'm sure most of you all know that we've had an uptick in homeless individuals in the town. We've actually had a disgruntled individual come into town hall a couple of weeks back. So there's some security upgrades that need to be made. So that's why this discussion is kind of going on. So it's not that we're trying to exclude town residents from just being able to walk in, but it's a responsibility I think we have to take on to make sure that the employees are safe. It's nothing against any town resident or anything like that, but we just need to make some security upgrades that's going to cost a significant amount of money possibly. So we're just trying to figure out what is the best option to keep our employees safe and not necessarily exclude anybody. So I just wanted to answer that question that I saw popped up and have everybody be clear that it's not that we're trying to do something to the town residents. It's more of a safety concern that, it's a structural issue with this building that we need to fix. So hopefully that answered the question and helped clear up a little bit of why we're talking about this.
So thank you, Chief. At any given time, is there going to be, will there be two employees in the office at any given time throughout the week?
Most days,
typically?
I'd say 90% of the time, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., there are at least 2 people.
Mhm.
And now it really depends, like if someone's working remote or someone's out sick and then someone goes to lunch or something, then it could bump down to 1. And I think one of the discussions we have was in those times when there was just one person, the front doors would be locked. And then people would have to call in like they do now. But most of the time we keep the doors open if there's at least, because usually I'm here most days, Dave's in and out, Tuesdays Will's here, Mayor, Chief, or there's usually people here. So we could lock the doors until the security improvements Chief mentioned kick in. That's always a thought.
Yeah, I'm just not trying to disclose all of the security issues on a recorded thing. That's why I'm being a little vague. So
I understand that. So I was just wondering, could maybe a workaround providing like a schedule online of those, like a consistent schedule if people want to pop in, come into the town to do their business and have it on the website? These are the days that we know for sure or time frame that 2 people will be there. So then at least we have some consistency with to be able to offer the town. And then also with folks that are wanting to do business. And then also just for things like copies to be made, possibly drop it in the Dropbox if there's a locked Dropbox, and then they can pick it back up at a certain time of the day, the next day. But if we have a schedule that's already made, that's consistent, where 2 people must be there, then that might help until you can get some of this safety issues or the lock issue fixed.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And not to impose too much on Darnell, but if for whatever reason someone was sick or something, could Darnell, maybe you or your staff kind of, instead of going over to Public Works to cool off or warm up, depending on the weather, like pop in Town Hall to just provide another, is that like too much to ask though? Because your stuff isn't over there?
I mean, that would sort of depend on the at least for me and my guys, the amount of time we would be there. That's, time taken away from other things that we could be doing. it's not an unreasonable request, especially if we have something scheduled. But other than that, someone just being there just in case, I'm not too sure about that.
I was thinking more just popping in so that there's police and you guys popping in on a day that is wonky for whatever reason.
Oh, that I don't really see that as an issue. Like you said, if we have people scheduling their times to come in, we can coordinate with that.
And I think we need to have I think I do like the suggestion made by Monica with the buzzer. That helps too. But in order to answer that buzzer, you need to have 2 people in there on a consistent basis for a time period. So whatever that time period is, and then it's known, and then we don't have you won't have to deal with that issue unless there's an emergency where someone just has to leave out for whatever the case is, and then we could probably let someone else know, or if they're not coming in, let you know, Kyle, and then make the needed adjustments. I think it's probably just about communicating when we're open, when we're able to service those needs and be consistent with that time, even if it's a couple of times a week.
I'd like to comment for the board. It always used to be when we were a much smaller team that the police would sit in for the clerk when he went to lunch. One, because business goes on, and the police knew how to take a citation payment or deal with questions on court and things like that, that people use their lunch times for that. So lunchtime has always been a kind of a difficult thing to set up, but we always did assist each other in covering the office. This is not talking about the securities issue though, but do think about a police clerk coming down the pike that is a perfect person to share, to job share. And, one person might get tied up, and, even when the employees are there, they do need to use the restroom now and then, or they're preoccupied with the phone.
Recording.
I'm sorry. Okay, I thought somebody was commenting, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there as food for thought. I think this is a good discussion to have.
Okay, bear in mind, the initial lobby appearance did not have a receptionist in it. It was not designed for one, which created a different dynamic in that we could not secure the rest of the building from the lobby. That was the original intent, but no one was supposed to be in the lobby to begin with. Now we have someone in the lobby 24 all the time. So that created another problem that security did not address initially. And we are addressing that. We know we keep the doors open or locked now, and we will continue to do so. We are working on security issues. We know they're there. And we are very concerned, and the safety of our employees is of utmost importance. It's not quite as easy to say, well, we should have a buzzer. Well, that it's not quite as easy as it sounds. We have to look at the cost, and do we change the whole door? I'm not a fan of the doors myself, but we are looking into other options to make sure that everybody stays safe. For the most part, I do not, I try to be in during the day as much as possible for that reason, so that someone else is here all the time. And especially during this pandemic, just to be sure that no one is left here alone. So we will continue, and once we open, we can continue. A schedule is very hard to keep, so to speak, and to be perfectly honest, once we open the town hall and we say we're open, we should be open from 9 a.m. to 5 or whatever. It is the public's town hall. It's, and they should be able to come when it's convenient for them, not so much when it's convenient for us.
Yeah, I think we should be open, but I don't think that it's unreasonable to open on a slightly smaller schedule. I think most places are opening with amended hours. So I think what Janice is saying makes a lot of sense because it allows us to reopen and be there for the public. It allows the public to know when they can come in. If they have something important on another day, they know they can call and say, hey, can I come in right now? And so I don't think it's necessarily unreasonable. I think the public can, adjust to hours.
Yeah, I mean, most businesses, yes, are making modifications for those very reasons, just to be able to service their clients. So I don't know. I mean, you all know your work better than I do, honestly, because you're there. But at the same time, if you're trying to figure out a way to be able to service the residents of the town and, folks that need to do business, then I don't believe that you need to do it every day. But if you have those set days, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever the date is, that you could kind of modify and make that known through the website, putting it on a door, however you want. I think through the website would be best, honestly.
Yeah, we can definitely have some internal staff discussions and try and work through the areas where we think. I think possibly I mean, even if town hall is closed to visitors, it'd still be the same. You can call and someone's in town hall at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to answer the phones. We definitely make sure and coordinate that with lunches and whatnot. Someone's always here answering phones 9 to 5. But I could work something into like the reopening, like the first 2 months we're reopening Monday, Wednesday, Friday to in person, Tuesday, Thursday, which is usually busy days for us anyways, especially Tuesdays. We have some modified schedules with meetings. Tuesdays, Thursdays, we don't accept walk-ins, but you can call for anything or come to the door and call for anything. But I'll work with the department heads and chief, and hopefully in 2 months we can have some sort of security plan in place as well, so we can safely reopen 9 to 5 and be open to the public again.
And when I was talking about modifying that, Kyle, it doesn't mean, for me, I wasn't thinking that someone has to be there 9 to 5 for this initially, but at least maybe if it's that block of time throughout the day somewhere that's like right after lunches, where everybody's finished with lunches and sometime, somewhere in between there, or it depends on if business ramps up early in the morning, how you might want to structure that.
Okay. Yeah, so we definitely make some internal talks and figure out what works best for all the staff, what they feel comfortable with, and present for some discussions as well, especially if I'm putting a lot of stuff on the June work session, but I think that'll be a good time to talk before a July reopening date, and that's always flexible, of course, but these are all great ideas.
Any other questions regarding any of the things that are on in this memorandum? I do want to state that we should keep the town rentals just to the meeting side of the building. We were at one time, before we had the receptionist desk out there, opening to having the lobby available and the lunchroom. I don't think we should be doing that in the future. So
And that's something I think we'll probably bring to the board for a more permanent fix for that, especially as we look at the security upgrades as well, to having that kind of be a rentable, secure wing, and kind of X out the ability for the lobby. So I'll take a resolution to change. But I think for the reopening plan and the declaration of emergency, that'll cover us on that. On that side, when the public call is saying, well, it says you can rent the whole facility. Well, we're under a state of emergency still, so there's some modifications. But we have had quite a couple people call asking about room rentals, which is one of the reasons we'll bring it up, and that's revenue for the town as well.
Yeah, so until the a new board vote on a new form. The agreement form has the rates for the full facility. And as long as we have a board vote on that and that agreement in circulation, you know, I mean, we might get challenged on it, but so I would like to change that, alter that form, and as soon as you can, really.
Dave,
Removing the full facility fee and the verbiage.
can the form be altered? Because we passed this at the next meeting, right? Can the form be altered and we can pass that at the same time? So that,
We could, it'd be a new resolution. Obviously we want to have discussion on it. But we also want to incorporate, make sure when we're discussing the security thoughts, once we have the security plan, new security plan in place, could be a good, because I think at that point we'd have a procedure for handing out that side's key or a key fob or something. And Chief, hop in because you're more the security expert. Do you think we could go ahead and change some stuff now in the room rentals, or wait till we kind of have a comprehensive security plan in place? I just don't want to pass something and then have to go back at it again when we have the new security protocols. But if Chief thinks we're good.
I think we should probably wait so that we make sure we have the security protocols in place so that we know how it's going to actually work. Because, you know, with the door, the one door that is ADA compliant, that's one of our biggest challenges in making sure that that door stays closed. So I don't want to, that would be kind of putting the cart before the horse. So I would say, let's work out the kinks and then we'll iron everything out, and then it'll be one time instead of multiple times.
But in the meantime, the emergency order will remove full rent.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's the temporary fix, and that kind of buys us time until we get the security plan in place.
Yes.
and there could just be a little memo that goes with the form.
Yeah, we can update that on because we have a web page on it as well. The town website. We'll update that. Put a note there about that as well. But that way, Dave has backup when people call and complain when in the whole facility. He can pass the blame. Okay.
So noted.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I'll work with the town attorney. We'll have a resolution for the June town meeting.
Okay, thank you. Going on to item item 5, town clerk recruitment process update. Will, would you like to update us on what has gone on thus far?
Sure. So for the town clerk search update, we have put out the job description and look for candidates roughly sometime in April, I believe, or late March, early April. We received about 80 applicants that sent their resumes and cover sheets into the town. We were able to narrow those down to roughly about 10, in which we did some pre-screen calling with those individuals. And then after that, myself and Kyle was able to schedule interviews, or a second phase of the interviews after the pre-screens, with 5 candidates that we just actually wrapped up those this afternoon. Following that, with those 5 candidates, we'll send those Zoom interviews that we recorded to the Board of Commissioners so that they can take a look at those candidates, and we'll schedule a third interview, or the final interview, with the Board of Commissioners and those 5 candidates, or the candidates that the Board of Commissioners select within the first week of June. Thereafter, we're looking to have or send an offer letter to the candidate that we wish to hopefully bring on as our next town clerk within the new fiscal year. We look to send that offer letter out. If not the first week in June, then definitely the second week in June, and hoping to bring them on as soon as possible. We typically know that individuals that have a a current job, they like to give their employer 2 weeks notice that they may be leaving. So we are cutting it close on the time frame that we would like to bring someone in, unfortunately, but this is what we have to work with. So we hope to bring someone in by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Hopefully by the time our current town clerk, unfortunately, but exits the facilities and retires. But we are in a good position right now. We think we have some good quality candidates. And right now, again, we're just, the next phase is to pass that information on to the Board of Commissioners so that they can go through their selection process and we can schedule those interviews for the first week of June.
Yeah, I received the email that you sent with those prior to the meeting. So I couldn't look at them today because I was
I
referring.
apologize. I didn't know I seen Kyle's email. So I'm working on it now. There is something that say I had to create a passcode or whatnot. So I'll make sure I get those out to you this evening.
Okay. Yeah, I will prioritize getting that done ASAP so we can tell you how many interviews, if I can look at that and say, okay, I would like to interview these people, and Janice can say who she wants to interview, and Linda can say who she wants to interview. And then hopefully that leaves us with only a few rather than all of them.
All right, gotcha.
And we didn't mean to send when we sent you all 80 resumes. We were talking with Insurity and they didn't want to cut anyone. They didn't want to cut anyone. They wanted the board to, so that's why we were able to kind of prioritize. We kind of put everyone on the side because we got dozens of people from Facebook with just like kind of 1-page resumes, but we didn't want to feel the board. So that's why we kind of categorized it those two ways in case you wanted to look at them. But these were kind of the 10 candidates we thought were most qualified and pulled up. And then out of those, we got 6, and like Mr. Murray, we interviewed 5 because 1 did drop out. Is there a time that you'd want those feedback from the commissioners on those last 5 people, Will, so you can set up interviews?
Yes. I know time is flying, and I guess technically some form of the first week of June is next week. So I would like to have a response. If I can get one by the end of this week, that'll be awesome. That way I can speak to the candidates. If not Friday, then definitely over the weekend. I'm sure that they'll be able to respond to emails as far as scheduling. We did reach out to the board to try to get some availability to schedule those. So as soon as possible, of course, it's the better, just to give everyone a heads up and get everyone prepared for that. So if I can get it by the end of this week, that'll be awesome.
And our pre-screening interviews we record, they're only 25 minutes long. We try to keep it real short.
Well, I'll get that back to you then by the end of the day on Thursday.
That's perfect.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. We appreciate it. I know we're kind of pushing it through, but we will make sure we find the right candidate, and it's hard to fill Dave's shoes. So
We understand. I can only imagine.
He'll do just fine, I'm sure.
Oh, that's because you set him up for success, Dave. You laid it all out nicely for him. All right. Were there any other questions for the commissioners on this? Or? All right. I'll move on to the next. Did you want me to start out with this as well, Mayor? And I'll turn it over to Will, Mr. Bond, and Chief. But pretty much we got a couple comparisons. I think this is the most extensive research for salary comparisons the town has ever done. I hope we didn't overload the board with information, but I think it was beneficial that we broke it out. Darnell was able to look at the public works salaries. Chief was able to pull some police salaries, and Charity pulled some things from the clients that they work with. And then I was able to coordinate with MML on their salary database that we have that I think will be an excellent tool moving forward. It's just we have to do a bunch of data entry. So I think next year we can actually run some very comprehensive comparison reports for both benefits, time off, and whatnot. But at least that gives you a good idea of what some of the other municipalities pay. Obviously, some are way larger than us, and hopefully by names you can kind of see, but it gives you a good scale. And just for the public heads up, that was not in the packet because that is confidential information based off the database we paid for and agreed to use it. So that's why it's in the closed session meeting packets. But I'll turn it over to Will if you want to cover the insurity part, the comparisons, and then if commissioners have any questions for Darnell or Chief on the police and public works ones, or me, we just kind of put the figures out there and wanted to see. Obviously, this conversation will carry over into closed session on some stuff as well. But
I'll just say, the commissioners were, asking our HR firm to try to, I guess, reach out to some of their partners or local governments that they are contracted with to try to get an idea of where some of the positions that they may have and similar to what we have rank as far as their salaries. So what they did was they reached out to their relationships or participants and they returned a document that wasn't a lot of information in it. It did have some positions with the salaries. It wasn't very detailed to some of the things that we may see a little bit later. But it did provide, I think they reached out to 3 or 4 of the municipalities that they deal with and provided the current and or highest salaries within those positions. So there were things such as the director of finance, town administrator, town clerk, police officers, and public works as well. So their numbers were not minimum salaries, medium salaries, and the largest salary. It was strictly more of an average and or the highest salary out of the 3 or 4 that they do business with. So there are other documents or spreadsheets that we'll, I guess, look at that will kind of have a little bit more detail, but they were able to, again, to provide something that we requested.
Yes, the amount of data was really helpful. I like to have lots of it. And I actually, kind of the discussion point I wanted to have was that I looked through all the data and then looked at our pay grades, right? The grades are the ones.
grade, yeah, not the steps.
And compared that with the data. And so, within the personnel ordinance, I had some kind of comments on the pay grades.
And I did mean to mention that we were probably going to touch on that section of the ordinance in this one.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring it up earlier. But I think, and something I think, like, budget-wise, we can't do right now. But to me, it makes sense that the head of, like, the highest person of each department should be in the highest pay grade. I realize that does not probably work right now, but I think that should be our goal, because if you're running a department, whether it's a police department or public works department or just the general government, that is what our highest pay grade should be for. That's one sort of side thing for us to discuss. And I did also have a question for Darnell about there's like a crew member, senior crew member, foreman, director pay grade. And the information you provided, Darnell, was based on crew lead. And I was wondering, I guess I'm just wondering what the senior crew member position is and how that's different from regular crew member or foreman.
The foreman ideally would be the person who is in charge in my absence, whether my absence as a whole or whether just out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
The senior crew member is most closely related to the actual crew leads that are in the chart I provided.
Okay.
That's just more so what they are called across the board.
Mhm.
And those, and in that sort of structure, it also breaks down a little further, but as far as the information that was provided to me by other directors, that's the most comprehensive as far as being broad that we came up with.
Should we change the name to crew lead then, Darnell? I know we kind of just made up senior crew member because we didn't want to have the base crew member. We had the next position up. Should we change that to crew lead to kind of bring it in step with the other municipalities? I know it's, as the commission may have seen, it's kind of all over the board what public works people are called. But,
Yeah, I think it's a question of whether they're leading, they have a team that they're leading, or if they're just being, is it a compensation for experience, which should go along the pay scale number, or is it a higher level position where they have more responsibility? And then that goes up a pay grade.
Ideally, we would have the person with the most experience as, and it's a little tricky for us
Mhm.
because we're so small. We could very well hire someone who has more experience than both of our guys. So
Mhm.
it's sort of a hard line to walk. As far as the actual name itself,
Mhm.
crew lead is fine. Throughout the different municipalities in Maryland, you'll find that changes quite a bit. But crew lead is the most commonly used.
and
Yeah, I
Darnell,
think-
I know we've had a couple of talks about it, but I know just to bring it to the committee, our ultimate goal as we annex, we get maybe 8, 9 positions is to have these teams in place, correct? Where you're the director, there's a foreman who's kind of separate and supervising more in the field while you're kind of in the office coordinating with the county, state, and the other town officials and whatnot. And then, so the foreman separate, and then you have these teams of maybe 2 to 3 public works people doing different jobs, litter pickup, either they're doing the refuse collections and stuff. And so in that you have the senior crew member, crew lead, and then you may have a crew member or 2, right? And so that's kind of the hierarchy you're thinking of moving toward or hoping to move toward.
Yep, because from what I've sort of seen, not everyone is as well-rounded. So ideally we would put them on the team where they would best fit. And what I'm looking to do is have one team that's more so as far as grounds maintenance, things like that. And the other is sort of along the lines of sanitation and refuse.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense then. So I don't know, should I just, because the pay grades have like question marks, so should I just say what I think for that? Or should
We can
talk
do
about
that now. If you think it will narrow people out too much, maybe close session and just give us a list of the board can give us a list of the positions and pay. I think there's a pay grade chart in the closed session information with the different.
Right, yeah, I mean, obviously each person has one of these individual jobs and we say
Mhm.
your pay grade in the ordinance. Yes, people a lot of
But, yeah.
information. But I mean, maybe particularly at the lower levels where we're going to be hiring people, we should have this discussion.
Open.
So maybe I'm just going to go with the the information that I looked at from all the different sources led me to think that the senior crew members or crew leads should be at pay grade 3. And also that the patrol officers should be at pay grade 4. I don't know if Chief has a concern about that. And then also the other one we're hiring for is the town clerk. And I was based on all the research, that should be pay grade 5. Basically on the hiring positions, that are open. I'll put that out there.
Was that for me or was that?
Oh, just because the patrol officers are in here at pay grade 5, but so is the corporal, which makes sense. And then when I actually like looked at all the information, the beginning of pay grade 4 is like a little low, I think, for patrol officer, but there's leeway in there within the steps too. So I think pay grade 4 is better for the patrol officers.
So I was
Wait a minute.
under the impression that we were going to probably discuss this. In my category, I have, if you see my slides, I have a totally different chart that's
Yeah.
not a part of the pay grade system because that's not generally what law enforcement uses.
But they are the ones
They're comparable, but the way that they're set up is different because law enforcement goes by rank and not necessarily by a pay step or pay grade.
Well, there's steps according to the ranks.
Yes.
Right.
So
Because you can, the thing is, in law enforcement, you could be demoted a rank, which then alters your salary. So in the pay grade system, you're not going to a different pay grade. You're going, so if you look at the ordinance, I mean, the form that I sent, that's why I was gonna kind of wait till I got to my part. So maybe that was different.
I
And
just
can
thought
pull
it
up your
was,
screen as well, Chief.
yeah, I mean,
you'd like.
because it's got chief, captain, lieutenant, sergeant, corporal, officer, but then I guess the steps are ranked in there.
Right.
I mean, I'm just wondering if it can be applied into our ranking, our system of steps, but we can call them ranks. We can say step or rank.
So what I'm saying, generally in law enforcement, it's completely separate from what the town or the government does for a reason of what I was kind of explaining. So if you had a corporal, for whatever reason, got demoted, they would go back down to a private first class. So as you see, they would actually lose their rank and they would also lose their salary. So they would go backwards. And in a step format, it's kind of difficult because generally sometimes the steps may go forward. So, and if you see if Kyle keeps going, there's two or three other examples that I'm not just doing this. This is what other police departments use, whereas you see the ranks are to the left and the steps are going across to the right. So these are just 3 examples, but everybody that I talk to does the exact same way. It's a unique way for law enforcement to better.
You know how they're authorized, Chief? Like ours is authorized through the personnel ordinance and the budget. Do you know how these are authorized? Like, is there legislation back? I'm just curious how they do that.
So all police agencies go through an authorized strength type of category. I mean, authorized strength format. But what we need to do is establish the ranks in advance so that if you have someone that can take that position, the position is already there. So you're not trying to create it every time a position comes available. It's already there, if that makes sense. So like if you look at the one right there, it has police officer all the way up to deputy chief. And then you have your administrative person 1 and 2. And then you also have an assistant chief. That's on that one. But if you go to the next slide, go up, you see they did theirs from administrative up to a captain. So it just depends on how they've structured their department. And then in those particular ranks, PFC to sergeant, you could have multiple officers in those ranks. But when you get to a lieutenant, you generally have 1 or 2, or you generally have 1 captain, or you'll have a deputy chief. So that title is kind of interchangeable. So, I mean, if you all wanted to do the step that's fine, but I would recommend doing it the way that most law enforcement officers and agencies do it, so that we would be consistent, so that when we're hiring people, they're not confused by a step system when they're used to being in a ranking and a rank system, so to speak.
We could technically build a police rank out of the town's overall pay scale, right? Just kind of eliminate all the other positions, and then you're left with kind of the police thing. Or we just put a whole different, we put 2 charts in the ordinance as well.
Most of the other agencies have the 2 charts.
Okay.
What I've seen, even in my research and asking the chiefs across the county and some state outside the county, they all have a separate pay scale. But it's pretty comparable, but it's laid out differently. As you see, some have it going to the right, some people have it going down, like ours is going down, theirs is going to the right. So it just, it's 1 or 2 ways to do it, but this is generally the format of how so forth, the law enforcement community does it, so.
I guess I'm just wondering if it could be resolved through putting all the ranks in like positions with the town's public safety department, you know, chief of police, adding lieutenant, and then you got sergeant, corporal, PFC, police officer, kind of giving a pay grade to those, even though it may be pay grade and step. Like, so a sergeant and a lieutenant might both be pay grade 6. I'm not sure because I didn't research lieutenant, but maybe the lieutenant is step 5 or something like that. Rather than having to have a whole 2 different charts that have to be discussed separately each year.
Well,
I think that we should, oh, go ahead, Chief.
now I was gonna say, it's whatever you all decide. I'm just suggesting and recommending that it's done the way that it's done in the law enforcement community, so that it's consistent. You can change it if that's what the board decides to do. You know, it'll look funny to the people who are coming in, but it just, because they're used to looking at it from this format and understanding where they are. Because you would actually have 2 kind of pay scales anyway, because they're not going to see their rank, they're going to see a number, unless you did a separate chart that said the same thing, because they're looking for their rank and where they are, versus looking at a piece of paper that says a PFC is a step whatever. You know, it would have to be spelled out differently.
I think we should be consistent, because also, I mean, it's no different than like when you think about military, they don't operate how we do in the civilian world. So it's similar to that same concept, pretty much. I think when folks are looking to us or considering being employed with the town, I think we should look consistent to every other municipality that's out there and not, you know, veer from that. So I think we should maintain a standard that if someone is coming to work for the police department, they understand where they are, what it looks like. It doesn't kind of freak them out that we're doing something totally different than every other place that they worked. So I think consistency is the key here. We need to be consistency with this particular specialty, which is the police department.
So I just looked at City of Greenbelt, and they do break it up separately, like Chief said. Obviously, they're larger than us, but they have a salary scale, kind of what we were thinking, where they have everything. As you can see, all these different things broken up by grade across the board. But police officers and command staff do have a separate chart. You can see right here, police officer salary stuff as well. So. Because the one I was actually looking at was the city of College Park, and I just realized they don't have a police department, so of course their police salaries wouldn't be there. That was the one I kind of liked and was thinking based off, but.
Okay, so I will defer to Chief's expertise, and I think Janice makes good points. So I I just was trying to save having two charts in there.
That was two, Commissioner. Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, that's the way it's.
But that with, I guess that brings up the other question of, will the charts themselves have the same salaries in them, just they'll say different things? I think that becomes, and maybe this year they do because we've got to get this going. But the question is that the way it should be? Chief?
So it
Sorry.
may or it may not, because the thing is, what's sort of unique with law enforcement, unlike the civilian world, sometimes different challenges create different advantages or disadvantages. So like right now, we're in a real unique position in policing in this time. So most agencies starting salaries have jumped up because recruitment is very much the issue. Law enforcement can't recruit enough people. So if we're on a step system and it's going to stay that way for a year or two and we don't adjust it, we could be behind. And you know, it could be a situation where the town decides, hey, we're going to give everybody a raise, and the police get a raise or they not get a raise. And it's based on performance and all these other things. There are other issues that come up where revenue may come in for law enforcement that may not come in for the town that's dedicated specifically to the police department, where salaries could be adjusted, but it may not be adjusted for the town staff to help cover expenses that will be incurred by the police department, because it is a unique field. And that's why I say it may line up in some areas, but not in all areas, because the salaries may adjust based on, for lack of better words, conditions, if that makes sense. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion with salaries increasing. 2 months ago is a whole lot different than today. So it just, you know, we won't be changing them. Let me be clear. We won't be changing salaries every 2 months. It will be on a yearly basis, but it's just the way that it flows sometimes.
So because we're only authorizing hiring patrol officers, could we put in a chart that has all the ranks and fill in our current and authorized hires and employees in, and then have those other spaces for the ranks, but not have salaries in them? I'm thinking because we need to pass this as part of the budget ordinance.
So I recommend the positions be there. Mm-hmm. And if there's not a person there, it would be zeroed out. So we're not putting a salary in for a position that someone is not in currently, but the dynamics could change in 6 months, where we may hire somebody outside of one of these lower level ranks. Well, if that occurs, then obviously we'll have a budget adjustment, but we would have the funding to take care of that in advance of hiring these people. So I think the position should be there with no money attached to them. But if someone came in with experience and we told them, well, all we have is a PFC position, which is, you know, X amount of dollars, and clearly they're qualified to be a corporal or a sergeant. If we don't have the position there, we can't put them in that position, and then we won't be able to hire them, or they won't accept the position. Is why I'm saying we need the positions available, and we will put people in those positions as needed when the time comes. But you can't put a person in a position that's not there.
Mm-hmm. So just to make sure, so the positions that we need to add are a lieutenant and a PFC, and then ranks within all of that. Do I understand that correctly?
So I don't, No, all of the only rank that's not in here is the lieutenant's rank currently. Am I
Okay.
right, Kyle? That's the only rank.
Correct. Yeah, I think the experienced police officer we have is kind of the private first class.
Yeah. So the only one that you'd be adding, but there would be no dollar figure to it, would be the lieutenant. And then we already have the clerk, which is considered a clerk or an administrative assistant. That position is already there. And then parking enforcement. If you look at this diagram that I put in, this was from 2019. So it just needs to be updated, but I was showing it to the board as a format, not saying that these are the specific numbers, but this is the format. You all would decide what the starting salaries are, I guess, later. But this is just a format I was proposing.
And
I guess what I'm just wondering for adopting the ordinance in time with or that pay chart in with the budget ordinance, if we can use this chart structure, but put in, so police officer would be, if we go with pay grade 4, just fill in the pay grade 4 numbers under police officer instead of 50,000, 51, 52, fill in our numbers for the steps, basically like restructuring the chart, or private first class, however it works, so that this year, you have the zeros like lieutenant, like we talked about, but we don't have to figure out what the numbers are and discuss it as a board, because they're the numbers that are already in the chart we talked about at the last meeting.
Maybe I'm not understanding. So the chart can be, maybe I'm not understanding, but the chart can stay the chart, but we're not putting in any numbers.
Right, this chart.
in the budget ordinance.
Right, but we need chief's chart in the budget ordinance.
And we can just copy and paste it into the budget ordinance, I think would be the simplest. And that way it's updated every budget year. And for the positions, so this chart can say lieutenant, but obviously in the budget, we're setting a certain amount for salaries. And honestly, if we're just moving money around in the police department budget itself, it does not require resolution. It does not require an ordinance to change, simply a resolution. So if we're putting in enough salaries for a chief, a sergeant, a corporal, and 3 PFCs, and a code enforcement officer, and we change that amount and we're not shifting money from other areas, but it's coming from like speed camera, we could easily change that by resolution instead, and just keep it simple, because the ordinance the ordinance isn't the detailed budget that we see, it's those breakdown of numbers that gets approved.
I guess my question is, can we use these numbers in this chart that chief has? Because I feel like otherwise we should discuss all these salaries.
That's probably what we will be doing in closed session.
We're going to discuss all of these individual salaries.
Well, this is something I think that we should probably look at in closed session, as opposed to going into great detail at this time. There should be a separate chart for the police department.
Right, but I think if it's going to be part of a public ordinance, we shouldn't talk about it in closed session, but in open session. And
then in that case, Sarah, what numbers do you want where?
I just want us to take, okay, so for example, police clerk is pay grade 2. So an chief's column of administrative assistant, I would like step 1 to match step 1 of pay grade 2. That way we don't actually have to discuss new salaries for the police department. We're actually using our chart salaries in chief's chart. So under private first class, which would be our police officers, pay grade step 1, instead of being $52,000, would be $50,500 as it's in this chart. So all those numbers that we've already agreed on in this chart then apply to public safety in a chart format that works for public safety. I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but I think we have so many other things to discuss in closed, well, and I don't think this should be discussed in closed section. I don't think talking about the salaries for each of these steps now is, I mean, it's just, I don't feel like we have time to create this chart. I mean, I know Chief has created this chart. And I don't know if everyone says, oh, this chart that Chief does looks good and we don't need to discuss it, and this one that he has can go straight in. I just think it should be something we've already agreed on, or that's a good question, Emily.
Okay, Chief, the figures that you used for your chart?
So let me be clear. This
Yes.
is for illustration purposes only. It's,
Right.
I didn't know we were going to get this involved because I don't know what the board has approved, so to speak. If there's going to be a pay raise of sort for the staff going forward, I need to adjust these numbers. So I didn't know that this was going to be discussed like this. So this is just sort of like like I said, a template.
Yeah.
I can adjust the numbers, but I need to know where to start, so to speak. But these numbers that are on here now, at least grade 1, is what we did with what was the starting salaries in 2019.
It was this chart.
No, the chart that's on the screen right now.
Yeah, it was from the last year's chart. So they are
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, is that these chart numbers should go into Chief's chart. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I can't, honestly, I can't see the chart. I
know.
can see it, but I can't see it. But so I'm
It's
saying
in
I
your
just need to.
packets. It's part of the budget ordinance. It's our pay grades and steps. I'm just saying they need to be rearranged.
Yeah.
These numbers just, I think Kyle understands what I'm saying.
I got it. So we're going to update these figures with the cost of living that the other chart got updated with, and that way it should reflect. I think it's a pretty simple fix.
Yeah.
We're just upgrading this chart is based off of the 2019 budget figures. The chart that Commissioner Franklin's showing is the updated chart with the cost of living adjustment, the 3% cost of living adjustment.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
we'll just apply that to
Yeah,
this chart, and they should match up number wise.
right. Okay.
So we'll have that.
Okay,
We'll
I'm
try-
clear on that too. So good, I'm clear. I agree.
That works. So we'll staff can work. We'll update that chart, send to the commissioners, I guess, in an email separately, and that just so you see it beforehand before it comes in the final budget ordinance.
And then it'll just be in there.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for
And that will be
understanding what I was
awesome.
saying.
And Chief, should we put, I know C Pleasance had like a shift differential and some other specialty staff unit hourly pay. I know we're working on a separate incentives resolution I was hoping to discuss soon. Do you think that those kind of special rates should go into a separate resolution? Should that get put in the budget with the pay chart, kind of like C Pleasant did? How did you want to set kind of those special police rates?
We can kind of sort of do it the way that they did it to make it easier.
Okay,
And that way it'll be just clean one document and it's over with.
got it. That's easy. So we'll add a new police section in the ordinance with this chart and the pay incentives, and that'll work. Okay.
Okay, so the actual pay grades, even though they're going to be part of this public document, we're going to discuss in private session because it's too close to, because we may have to discuss people's actual salaries while we're discussing them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get possibly performance, I think as well, and goals and whatnot, but we
So,
could come out of closed session and you could set the pay grade again. Yeah, it's kind of a,
so, okay. I mean, I see that, and I just want to kind of have like an overarching sort of thing, because I feel like the pay grade what pay grade you're in shouldn't be related to your performance
Sure.
necessarily. Your pay grade should be related to your responsibility, how many people you're supervising, that type of thing. I do know there are budgetary considerations. And so, like I said, like I think all the heads of the 3 departments should all be pay grade 8, but I don't think budget wise we can do that. But I do think the heads of all the departments should at least be fairly close to each other in pay grades. So for example, we have the director of public works, like 2 pay grades below everyone else. And I think that should be rectified. So like little details, okay, but the overarching idea is that if you're running an entire department, you all should be on fairly similar pay grades.
and what we could do is, even if it's not budgetary, if the board wants to also set a goal of where we want to end up as we annex and whatnot as well, that could be comparable. So like this is the pay grade we want that position to get to. And we could work that out maybe next year after, keep bumping them up the pay grade, not just for department heads, obviously, but across the board. Could be an option. I don't think discussing pay grades in open session is, as long as we don't say names or, tie it too much like that.
Well,
exact
it's
steps,
obviously
but
published anyway, so people can
yeah,
figure some extent of it out.
they
But
can-
I don't, what do other commissioners think about that? This having sort of some sort of parity between departments and responsibility level and pay grades.
I thought that's what we were talking about when we were mentioning just, actually, I'm in agreement with that. I mean, of course, I think that we should have some differentiation here, but I don't know. I think I need to look at this a little bit more.
So I guess I'm just
Or
gonna
maybe I can put my input in when we go into a closed session.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going to say, I think that the town administrator and the director of public works should both be at a pay grade 7. So. And the town clerk position, what I looked at, should be a 5. So based on reviewing everything, that's where I think we should be.
Okay, any other comments? Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to general commissioner and administrative staff items. First in play is Sparks Play contract extension.
Sure. So we're making some progress with the playground. We're actually working with DPI. I don't know. I honestly can't remember if I updated the board on the dedication of the right-of-way issue that we're having with the DPW. We got a response letter back on our concerns. And I'm waiting for the playground contractor to kind of decipher it. It's in engineering language. Initially, it was good news that they were kind of looking to grant us a waiver. But besides that, the Sparks of Play contract ends July 1st. When we reset this back in the fall, we thought this would be plenty of time. But now they want to move forward with kind of a contract, not extension, but a change of the contract in which they have X number of days after the final permit is issued to complete the work. So if the board, we have the letter in there, they provide a timeline. That's not the actual contract document. That contract document come with the, I'd ask them to generate that for the town meeting, but we just wanted to open up for discussion and see what the commissioners thought on that.
I think things need to get extended and they need to get extended.
I think we should extend it, and hopefully DPI will come around sooner rather than later. I know I was going to be checking in with them again tomorrow. We just got the letter back today.
Once I get it deciphered, I'll be able to,
Yeah,
in layman's terms, is what the playground, they're gonna put in layman's terms for me. I can send it out to the commissioners so that you're aware. Unless you just want me to send the email I have now. I just didn't want to overload you guys with emails. But hopefully we get an update. I can get that out to the board tomorrow. But if the board's in favor of granting the extension, I'll talk to Sparks of Play, have them generate the contract. And then the board will just approve it at the June town meeting, authorizing the mayor to sign it. The same thing we did last time.
Sounds good.
Moving on, our tin Incorporated Juneteenth event. Sorry, I can't speak. That we have a nonprofit, Artin. They've done some work with the other city of District Heights or Capitol Heights. I'm pretty sure it's District Heights. They do some work in DC. They wanted to bring an event out to Upper Marlboro. They're primarily working with the Marlboro Boys and Girls Club. They're using their fields and whatnot. And part of the event is outside the town limits technically, because the Sasser Fields is split by whether or not it's in the town or not. But the mayor and I were able to sit down with them. They provided some documentation last night that I was able to send out to the board with some plans. They were asking if they could use our logo on their flyers, that we were partnering with them. And then they did ask to see if the town would want to think about supporting them monetarily. I did mention if it was a free event, I'm sure there wouldn't be an issue at all. But just because it's a paid event, I couldn't speak for the board because we really haven't set that kind of precedent yet, as we had for free unpaid events where the town has made a contribution for National Night Out or the backpack giveaway on Main Street, that was free as well. But I'll open it up if the board has any questions or concerns or anything.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about putting town money for an event that's not free. I missed the charge when I looked at the document. So I don't know if it's like a $2 charge or if it's more substantial, but I think, maybe there's something we can fund so that like this thing is free provided by the town. I don't know, like water and usually when you're charging for stuff, you don't want that. So I don't know. I love the idea of this event and partnering with them, but I do kind of feel like the town provides events that are at no charge or minimal charge to residents.
And I did convey that to them. I think the mayor put it pretty clearly. This is definitely an event we want to celebrate and we welcome it. That was just when they said the payment of charge, I kind of slowed our horses. But we did offer, I say, even though if we couldn't donate, there's some other things we could do. We could help kind of put the word out there about it. I was going to start drafting a Juneteenth proclamation for the board to issue at the June town meeting. We're trying to get more into the proclamation, recognizing holidays and movements and whatnot, and just kind of coordination day of possibly. But the event's a month away, and they just brought this to us. I think they sent emails up maybe last week.
Mm-hmm. We could maybe, the events committee is really running thin because there haven't been events, so people have found other ways to volunteer their time. but we could try checking in with them.
I know they've reached out to the CERT team as well for some support.
Okay.
I forward their information over to Alonzo Joy.
I mean, I think I'm available. I mean, I'd, help them out on a like volunteer, like come over there and volunteer. Because I do think it's
Perhaps the town funds a section of it. Maybe the outdoor movie portion is free. And the rest of the festival is paid maybe, because we have done movies before.
Yeah.
That sounds great, Kyle. That's a great suggestion. That free, I like that.
I don't know if they break it out like that though, Kyle.
That's the question we're gonna have to ask them, or maybe they designed the event to do that. I can't remember if they the timing is different, or I think they were talking about having a movie toward the end of the day anyways. So maybe
Yeah, it seems like a pretty late event.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm trying to find the thing because I know the town events committee wanted to do movies. So if they just funded that movie, as long as it's within their budget for funding that movie, I think that makes sense. I can't.
This is a draft flyer. If the town's good with at least starting the advertising with the support of the town logo, I can let them know that they can start advertising. But this is just putting it on the screen for the public, and the public wants to see it. It is posted under the meeting page of the town website.
well, them using our logo, I mean, it does imply that we are in partnership. So I guess that's where we're at a crux to figure out exactly what that partnership looks like. Because if they're charging, then, I'm not.
Yeah, it looks like the movie doesn't start till 8:30, and there's no other events running along with the movie.
Yeah.
I can bring that offer up to them. We'll cover the cost of the screen rental and whatnot. And we
Take
advertise
off
that part as
some-
being free. And it's going to be they didn't pick the movie exactly, but it was going to be an African American empowerment movie. They have a lot to choose from, but they didn't know exactly, and I can get that from them as well to make sure the town is good with it.
Is that our flyer or is that their flyer?
This is their flyer.
Can you
with
scroll
our
back up to the
logo.
top?
Scroll back to the top.
I think
Does it
Kyle
look-
just put our
Wait, no, go back to where it says family, go down a little bit.
Well,
The address is wrong. See, it says 4201 School Lane, so they need to fix that or else they won't have anybody there.
yeah, I think this was kind of a schedule because I kind of asked them, could they give us some sort of plan in writing, which they said they could easily do. So that's what this is. But
And they'll be showing up at my house like Mel always does. That belongs everywhere else.
Dennis is having a huge party.
Oh my gosh, I get the mail. It's incredible.
Well, if the board would like, I know the mayor can authorize purchases upwards of $2,000. Normally, a movie rental set, I think, is about $1,800. And if there's anything over, we have the town meeting between now and then. But I can definitely take this option back to them for the movie partnership portion, and then.
And if they would separate out the price, like so that whatever they were planning on charging, they would charge less. But I don't know how to figure that out.
Movie screen rental and sound 2,000 for Funflix. Yep. So that and we can have them. Yeah. Okay.
What are the proceeds going towards?
The Marlboro Boys and Girls Club, anything
Okay.
extra. Yeah, that's because I brought that up as well. I was like, this isn't going to anyone's pockets. It's like an entertainment thing. That's why they partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. It's all going to the football team, especially.
Is that managed through Prince George's County?
They're their own 501c3, but their partnership with
Mm.
The reason I kind of asked them to make sure that they leaned heavily on the Boys and Girls Club is the Boys and Girls Club have the formal agreement with Park and Planning Board of Ed to use the fields.
Okay.
So they're
Mhm.
piggybacking off theirs. When we've done the movie nights, we've done the same thing as we've gone through the Boys and Girls Club because we don't have a agreement with Park and Planning and the Board of Ed.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, my kids have a game that day, a baseball game at Sasser. So
They-
I know they coordinated with the football guy, but I'm wondering if they coordinated with the baseball guy. Or
They were saying they have a couple fields to choose from, and they
Yeah.
can move around as needed. So let me add that to my list.
And just Janice, the organization, or at least the baseball section, is completely volunteer. So like we have a commissioner who works like crazy and takes in all this stuff, and he gets a big paycheck of $0. So they
Good to know.
for the kids.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion or any other questions that you might want to ask at this point? As we get more information, like Cal said, he will pass that along.
So I'll let them know they're good to advertise with our flyer, knowing that our partnership will cover the movie, $2,000. But on that, we want to know, make sure the overall price of the event goes down and the movie's free. And then also if they could just work with the baseball and pinpoint the exact location and coordinate. Are those all the options, the things you want me to reach out to them about?
I can just ask the baseball
Oh,
commissioner.
okay.
when I see him on the field and make sure he's not using it, and then I'll let you know.
Yeah, that can work too.
I assume the football guy talked to him, but you never know.
Okay, is there anything else for this portion of the board or of the work session?
I had one other thing.
Okay.
The
Oh,
circuit rider
You
program.
snuck that one in on me. You didn't tell me.
That was a last minute one, Mayor. I just want to make sure we didn't lose focus of it. Just an update on the town. The town of Morningside still has the documents. I prepared the application and filled out everything from the town of Upper Marlboro needed, and a draft budget, which would cost the town $5,700. And I can definitely work with Mr. Morgan to make sure that's kind of incorporated. But that is that'd be the total cost for the town for a grant writer. We have 20 hours a week. The other 20 hours are split with Morningside. So the town of Upper Marlboro, we pay $5,700. The town of Morningside pays $5,700, and then the state of Maryland covers the other $50-some thousand for that. But once we get that back from the town of Morningside, we just need to pass a resolution at the June 8th town meeting authorizing it, and we should be good to go. But I wanted to see if there was any concerns or if the board had any quick questions on it. But this would be the position that kind of handles all our green grants. They can step in, help with the playground stuff. They can work with police on any police grants, Darnell with any other grants, and not only apply for them, but kind of help keep everyone on track, and definitely help Will with reimbursement requests and whatnot. And it's for the most part free, and it helps build a partnership with a fellow municipality. And this is for municipalities with a population of 5,000 under.
I think the return on this investment is going to be worthwhile.
Absolutely. I know this is something that you all will take a load off of your plate as well.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
these things are-
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, it does.
All right.
Would be a welcome addition.
Right.
That'll work. All right. Well, if everything looks good from the town of Morningside's perspective, I'll try and send out the full application once they send it back to the board, just so you guys have a bit more time to review it. But pretty much the resolution is going to just be authorizing the 5,700. All right. And that's all I had, I promise.
So I did have kind of with the Memorial Day, is that advertised at 11 o'clock already?
That was not, and that is Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a flexible time. That was more of an in-house time. The only
That's when we
piece-
normally did it every year.
But the only piece we're kind of working on is, and the new piece to that we've done is they've installed that memorial bench at the schoolhouse pond. From the Curtis family who live just outside town. I actually spoke with them when they wanted to put the bench here at Town Hall. And I told them that'd be great. We could definitely do that. But no one would really see it. And so I kind of put them in the direction of the park rangers and then put that bench there. And we just think it'd be a good idea, even though the town hall is dedicated for veterans, that we also have a bench at the schoolhouse pond for a fallen veteran as well who died overseas. So just work with, I've reached out to the family to see if they'd be opposed to us putting a wreath, but they like to join us. But their time frame would be the only one different. But correct, if we could move the time, Mayor, I guess, to accommodate. Okay.
Yeah, I get off at 11 for.
So that's,
We can't hear you, Sarah.
Couldn't hear you.
I don't know what's going on, Sarah, but we can't hear you.
Mm-mm.
oh, there you
Okay.
go.
Oh, there I am. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I would like to be there. I think, it's important. It's important to honor these people, and it's important that the board, if we can all be there to honor.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best, actually. I mean, I'm working Monday through Friday now, so
Oh, yeah, that's right. You have to work.
I can
even
work.
though-
Yes, 9 to 5. So, but I'll do my best.
If we do it at noon, is that like your lunchtime? Does that help?
You're working
No.
on Memorial Day?
We may have an event, yeah, on Memorial Day. So, but still, that's okay. I can work it out. Mm-hmm.
Could do 12:30, 12:30.
I mean, for me,
Noon.
12:30 is better,
12:30.
but if that's too late, then.
We
12
could
is
do the town hall at 12 and then the schoolhouse pond at 12:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Memorial Day was always early because almost everyone has some kind of family affair or a cookout to attend to. in the-
And that before we did the wreath laying, they did actual events at town hall. So that's the only, but and hopefully moving forward, we could start maybe doing some sort of event again post-COVID. But in the meantime, I know last year the mayor wanted to at least do something. So I'll edit that to 12 p.m. I apologize.
Is there a reason why it was changed to like 12 as opposed to what Dave was saying, like doing it earlier? Or what was that earlier time? Maybe I'm missing something.
10 o'clock, I believe. Is that correct?
Oh,
I just requested
Mayor?
a later time.
In the past, they did it at 10. They had a speaker, they had a ceremony, and then afterwards, there was a fellowship of the people that did come for the event, and there were sometimes upwards to 20, 25 people that came and listened to this.
And to see the color guard from Frederick Douglass.
And they would have the color guard come through. I don't know if we did that last year or not.
But it was, yeah, it was more than, it was really concentrated on the memorial of the fallen. And the fact that the town hall is a war memorial,
mm-hmm.
been dedicated as such. And
I think we missed
thought
doing
that
it.
it might be nice to partner with the Veterans Commission for Maryland and to rededicate the new town hall as a war memorial, do a rededication ceremony. And they're pretty much telling me, if you're planning to do it on Memorial Day, good luck, because everybody's got somewhere to go with their families. Either they're traveling or they're having everybody come in, or they've already got the kids want to do a pool thing at a friend's, so that's why it was always early. And it was kind of like the mayor said, it was light refreshments afterwards, just something very, very simple, but not a long event.
Yeah.
We also missed doing it in 2018 and 2019. We did nothing on Memorial Day, which was very upsetting to a number of people in town. including myself, which is why last year we had the wreath laying. We knew that no one could come out because of COVID, but it still was something that I felt was necessary to commemorate.
Janice, is it easier for you to be there if it's earlier? Because then you should do it earlier. Like,
Yes, I mean, right. I mean, it would be nice to be able to do it earlier, but at the same time, that date for me is a little bit in flux. So with some of my responsibilities. So if we could do it earlier, that would be great. But if we can't, then I'll try to figure it out.
Yeah, I just know that
But thanks for asking, Sarah.
yeah, if you want to do it earlier and if staff has to be there and staff wants to do it earlier, I guess just if we're having an event that you want all the commissioners at, I need 3 weeks notice.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I can get the day off because they know that I'm a commissioner and that I have responsibilities. So,
and see, on the other hand, my job does not know I have other responsibilities. So, yes, having that additional time to plan would be very, very helpful because some of the things that I do, it's very spontaneous at times.
No, I apologize. That's on me. I was trying to get it out. But we'll make sure we get it on everyone's calendars for next year and try and get a calendar established so people have a more forward thinking, like we've been doing for the other events, like the car show and blood drives and vaccine. We try and put that at least to save the date immediately. So we'll try and get better at that. I apologize. So what time did we do?
So, I mean, if staff has to be there and staff needs to get out, you know what I mean, then don't make it later. If the family wants to be there and their time, but if it's just going to be, commissioners, then if we can, please do it when I can be there. But I don't want to change it just for me. So
okay. We can, I can wait till I hear back from the family. I emailed them the other day. I do have a phone number as well. I was just gonna give them some time to I'll give them a call and see what time works best for the family, and then we can kind of plan around there. I did tell them probably around 11:30, so that maybe closer to noon anyways. But we can always do the schoolhouse pond first and then come to town hall or something.
Yeah.
Depending on them. But I just definitely wanted to incorporate that memorial bench at the schoolhouse pond as well into it.
Okay.
I'll let the board know of the what the family's wishes are. We can coordinate a time because it's just the internal staff, and I'm pretty flexible that day, all day, except for the afternoon for actual dinner time. So I'll be there to take the pictures.
Yeah, what's best for that family, that's what you should do.
Okay, any other topics, questions, or comments? Okay. We will go into closed session. And I do have a closed session statement to read. We are about to go into close this meeting to the public in accordance with the procedures found in General Provisions Article 3-305B of the Maryland Code. The topics and purpose of this closed meeting is to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom the public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more individuals. The specific statutory authority to close this session is found in General Provisions Article Section 3-305 subsection B, paragraph 1. Is there a motion to close this meeting for the reasons and legal bias for the closure as stated previously? Do I have a motion?
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. The commission will go into closed section to discuss confidential and personnel matter. There any further discussion?
Sorry, there's some comments from the public, but I'm not sure. It's not about the closed session, so I don't know if we need to address it.
Oh, I have a question. Who made the motion? I didn't hear.
Commissioner
Janice made it because
made
I
the
was muted.
motion and Commissioner Franklin seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying yay. All those opposed say nay.
Yay.
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 All yay, so noted.
The ayes have it and the motion to close the meeting is passed.
So we just need to leave this meeting and then come back in.
Oh, just a moment.
Yeah, so the commissioners can just stay on. I know if everyone will take like a minute or 2 5-minute break, come back. Obviously the public can't be in here, so I'm gonna stop record. And thank you everyone in the public for joining. Our meeting, by the way, before you guys head off.
Now, excuse me, everyone, and I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart that I can. Before I even got to finish my statement, you all decided what you were going to do, but the end of my statement is, ladies and gentlemen, except for the elected officials, you are excused and thank you for attending. But at this time, you are asked to exit the meeting so the closed session may be conducted. That's my job, not everybody else's job. That's what protocol is. And I'd really like to try to stay to protocol, especially when we're doing closed sessions. So with that, anyone who is not an elected official, I am asking Will and Kyle, Chief, and Darnell, if you would stay on for just a few minutes or come into the closed session for just a few minutes in case there are any questions that need to be answered by you, so we don't have to keep bringing you back and forth.
Sure.
So if everybody wants to take a break at this point, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes in case anyone needs to get a drink or do whatever.